It's time for Football at 4 with 97.3 ESPN.com's Andrew DeCecco.
My first allegiance is what will be best for the Philadelphia Eagles and our fans for the next 3, 4, 5 years.
Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
All right, Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast and brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back. For everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery, go to ilovelyle.back.com or call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4. Andrew DeCecco is here on a perfect day because I got a lot of draft questions, and he is the draft master, the draft guru, if you will, of the Inside the Birds team. So when we get into draft, DeCecco's the man. And the latest mock draft from Mel Kiper Jr. out today that I was taking a look at, Sir Broads, and it has a very interesting player going to the Philadelphia Eagles at number 6. And I had said before, I would prefer Patrick Surtain or Michael Parsons. I want a defensive building block, an impact player on defense. But Andrew DeCecco, if there's one wide receiver they take at number 6, Ja'Marr Chase is the guy that I would sign off on. How do you feel about Chase at number 6?
Well, I'm kind of in the same school of thought as you, Mike, as far as getting a defensive building block. But I tend to think that, with Sirianni being an offensive-minded head coach, they need weapons for their young quarterback. It makes sense that they're going to go the receiver route. I'm still not convinced that Ja'Marr Chase makes it past number 3. But I think that if you're comparing Ja'Marr Chase or Devontae Smith, I think I would sign off on Ja'Marr Chase because, to me, he's an every down receiver. He can work all 3 levels of the field. You don't have to worry about the potential durability concerns. I think that he's also he's a bigger contested catch type of receiver, which the Eagles really need because it didn't work out with Jay Jaw. So there's a lot of different variables and aspects to his game that I think would translate well. And it would be a perfect marriage with what the Eagles need.
Now, Daniel Jeremiah described him. I thought this was like something that if you don't know much about Chase, number 1, he had him as his number 2 ranked player in his entire draft class. He had described him as a faster version of Anquan Boldin. I'm like, hello, sign me up for that, because Boldin was a tremendous player, but he wasn't that fast, guy. He was just like that big, physical, kind of like a big slot guy that was like a chain mover. But you're telling me a faster version of Anquan Boldin? Like, that to me sounds like a difference maker on offense. So 2 questions. One would be, Daniel has him as his number 2 overall player in the entire draft class. Where do you have Chase in this draft class?
Probably 4 or 5. I mean, 2 is definitely high praise, and he is going to be he is my top receiver on my board. And to your point about Anquan Boldin, to what Daniel Jeremiah said, I can certainly see it. Anquan Boldin was that tough, physical possession receiver that was going to always make those contested catches, hold on, go after the ball in traffic. That's certainly what Ja'Marr Chase is going to do. He's a little bit more elusive in the open field. He's actually a terror to bring down. It kind of reminds me of Deebo Samuel and his ability to kind of look for contact, seek contact, and run through it and make plays in the open field. I do think that if you're going to take a receiver at 6, I think he needs to be the one, and it would be an interesting receiving core with Ja'Marr Chase, Jalen Reagor, and then the young group of Quez Watkins, John Hightower, maybe Jay Jaw pans out. But then you have a young nucleus you can really build around Jalen Hurts and see what he can really do.
How do you view Ja'Marr Chase taking the year off from LSU? And I'm not saying this means he's not going to be able to play or anything crazy like that, but, I just want to get your thoughts when someone sits out an entire season, and I know he probably prepared his body and all, but to not play football for a whole year, that's got to do something to you, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, first of all, bros, congrats on your new endeavor. This is the last time you and I will be on the air together, so you'll do great.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
But, yeah, man. But to your point, I almost see it as a positive that he didn't play last year because he didn't take any of those hits, and he showed so much. He's one of those rare players that showed so much in his his previous season, and he answered a lot of questions as far as being, his limitations and things like that. That you really needed to see from Ja'Marr Chase. Granted, he was playing on that prolific offense, but I mean, he checks off all the boxes. He really does, and he really saw all you need to see. He played at such a high level, competed against the best every week, and I think that when you know exactly what you're getting in him, and it's a perfect fit for what the Eagles need.
Well, I'll tell you what you are getting from him. For those of you out there who are not all that familiar with Chase, since he did not play this year, his last season at LSU, they won the national championship. Justin Jefferson played with him, and he had 84 catches for 1,780 yards and 20 touchdowns. That's the numbers Ja'Marr Chase put up. So everybody talked about Justin Jefferson. Chase was really the main man on that team. As good as Jefferson was, and Andrew, get your opinion on this, Chase is I don't want to say that much better, but he was the guy there. Jefferson was kind of the other guy. Chase was the guy.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson was a great, Robin to Ja'Marr Chase's Batman, and he's more of a complementary player. Obviously, Ja'Marr Chase is the far more dynamic of the two and can do a little bit more, but Justin Jefferson, to me, was the more polished receiver coming out. That's not to say that Ja'Marr Chase has, a slew of deficiencies. I mean, he needs to get a little bit more proficient and technical with his route running and catch the ball a little bit better, and there's going to be questions about his downfield speed that he needs to answer. But, I mean, my goodness, I mean, he's another dynamic receiver that you can add to that receiving core. I happen to think that Jalen Reagor is also going to take that next step with a full offseason. So, I mean, all of a sudden you start to bring in these pieces and add, a dynamic element to an Eagles offense that really doesn't have one.
You read my mind. I was going to bring up Jalen Reagor and how he would benefit from this. And, how could Sirianni maybe utilize the two best in your eyes?
Man, I mean, those are two receivers that you want to get the ball to them in space. And if Nick Sirianni, I go back to his opening presser when he mentioned that he liked to get his receivers the ball within 5 to 10 yards of the line of scrimmage. Well, that plays into the strengths of Jalen Reagor, and it plays into the strengths of Ja'Marr Chase. So, I mean, those guys, you want to get them the ball in the open field. You don't have to force feed them targets. You can give them the ball in end arounds. You can throw them screens. You can throw slant routes. And in those two particular cases, they can take a slant route the distance. They have that type of athleticism and explosiveness to them. So, I mean, that's exactly what I think, just based on, what Nick Sirianni envisions and his philosophy, those two guys right there, it would be a perfect tandem.
All right, Andrew DeCecco, Football at 4, powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. In your mind, those three wide receivers, Chase, Smith, and Waddle, they are the best three. Is that the way you're putting them too? How do you rank those three? And is there somebody else who's in the same, conversation as them at number 6? Is anybody else worthy? Are those three worthy of a 6th pick? Or is there anybody else that is also a wideout that would be in that area?
Well, to me, at number 6, the only one that I would be, I'd be running to the podium to snag if they're available is Ja'Marr Chase. I love Devontae Smith and Waddle, but I think Waddle might be a little bit of a stretch there at 6. And Devontae Smith, and it's hard for me to get past. As good as he is, and as tough as he plays, it's hard for me to get past that slight build and not think of, maybe like a Marquise Brown or something like that, where, they have these stretches where they'll have these big games, but they're not going to be as consistent enough as a player like a Ja'Marr Chase will week in and week out, an every down receiver, if you will. So, I mean, 6, to me, it's either Ja'Marr Chase or you look and see did Penei Sewell slide down, the offensive tackle from Oregon, or you look at Patrick Surtain, probably even Caleb Farley, who has the highest ceiling to me of any cornerback in this draft.
All right, I want to pick your brain on this a little bit. You mentioned Sewell. Is he that good that at 6 you just can't pass on him? Because, I mean, I see Lane Johnson, I got Mailata, I got Dillard. Are you essentially saying I need another left tackle here to compete with Mailata and Dillard? I mean, essentially you're bringing in a guy that I have 2 guys that I feel, I don't want to say that they're better than Sewell, but don't I feel somewhat comfortable letting Dillard and Mailata battle it out for that spot, or am I missing on a guy that is potentially, like a Hall of Fame level player? You know what I mean?
Yeah, Penei Sewell is an athletic specimen. He's so technical. His footwork is good. He's a plug and play. He's a day one starter. And I think that if you have a chance to get a player like that and to be a 10-year plus blindside protector for your quarterback, a franchise left tackle, you do that. And you find a way to, maybe Jordan Mailata or something as a right tackle, and you find a spot for him. You have to think long term, but you get a guy like that, and you figure out the rest of it later, because offensive line, you got to get that shored up, and getting a player like that shores it up for the long term. And the Eagles really need to get younger on the offensive line. So he's not somebody that I envision slipping to 6. So if he does, it'd be awfully tempting to pass that up.
Let's say they take any position other than corner at 6. Is there someone you see in the second round around the area that they draft that you think that, hey, maybe they can go find that outside corner to pair with Darius Slay in that second round range?
Yeah, and that's a great question. And the mock draft that I did for InsideTheBirds.com, my 1.0, I had them taking Eric Stokes with pick number 38, the corner from Georgia, and then going to Ja'Marr Chase in the first round. And that's the thing with the second round. There's going to be at least 3 or 4, probably 3 corners in that range where the Eagles will be picking. It's going to be a high level starter, in my opinion, an outside corner, which is what they need. And so I don't necessarily know that you have to panic and take a Surtain or a Farley at 6. Now I do think that Farley, like I was saying, has the highest ceiling of any corner in the draft, but I don't know that I wouldn't panic and knowing that you can get one of these other quality corners in the second round.
Yeah, I know that. I wouldn't mind Surtain. Farley. Now, Chase did not play last year. Farley also did not play. Would you say Farley is a better prospect than Chase?
Well, it all depends on where the franchise, the new regime prioritizes the position. Jonathan Gannon has that rich, wealth of knowledge in defensive backs coach. So I don't see them not addressing the defensive back area, in the first 2 rounds. That's going to happen for sure. It's just a matter of, the thing with Caleb Farley is he was one of the first players to opt out. He had 2 years of high level production. He's a ball hawk, which is what the Eagles really need at that position. They don't get a lot of turnover. He's someone that's very fluid. He's long. He's athletic. He can run. He can defend all different types of receivers of all shapes and sizes. There's no limitations really to his game. Now, he did have a non-contact ACL injury as a freshman, and he had a lingering back injury that forced him to miss 2 games in 2019. So there's going to be the injury concern. And the Eagles, with their history of injuries, they may not be willing to roll the dice there. But his ceiling is there's really no limit to what he can do. He's a great prospect, and he's a day one starter and a shutdown corner, and will be a future All-Pro. But there's going to be other guys that they can get in the second round that are going to be also day one starters, high level guys. Maybe not to that extent, but I don't know if they need to reach for a corner at 6 if they don't, just for the sake of doing so.
Yeah. Now Farley, one thing, he's only played 23 games. Patrick Surtain's got the bloodlines, and he played 40 games. He was at Alabama. Everything just kind of, if you just put the resumes next to each other, just it feels like you should go Patrick Surtain for between the two of them. I would have loved to see Farley play another full season, but you think he is the consensus number 1. So you think he might go ahead of Surtain in the draft?
Yeah, I certainly do, just based on upside and what he's. And the thing with Patrick Surtain, he gets his hands on the football quite a bit. I believe he had 24 pass ups over his 3-year career there at Alabama. But there's not a ton of turnover production. He doesn't get a lot of interceptions. And in the NFL, you're going to want to convert a lot of those into turnovers, and that might be a little bit concerning. I know that Caleb Farley has that that back end playmaker potential, and if you're able to get past the injury concern and the limited resume, you look at the body type. He just has this prototypical build. If you have a defensive back-minded coach that can, and a strong support team that can really mold that athleticism and make him a high-level starter, I think that teams are going to be hard pressed to pass him up.
This is a little out of the box because it's not about a specific player, but I remember Zach Berman wrote a piece for The Athletic, and I looked it up on January 11th, and he brought up how the Eagles haven't drafted a player directly from Alabama in 19 years. Is that a little crazy to think about how dominant they've been? And look, there's plenty of great talent out there. I just think it's interesting to see such a prestige college program, 19 years, not one player directly drafted from there. It's a little crazy, don't you think?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty wild to think of, given their rich history of success. There's a deep talent pool. It doesn't. They always say, don't scout the helmet, scout the player. And I mean, sometimes the Eagles go a little bit further beyond that, and they try to outsmart or outthink everybody, and it doesn't always work out. But I mean, man, how could you not land on an Alabama player? I mean,
yeah, by accident. I think, by accident it would happen.
Well, actually, they this is jogging my memory. In 2002, they drafted. I guess it was Freddie Millens was the last Alabama player that the Eagles drafted.
Not Saron Stacy, the running back Saron Stacy. How long ago was that? Man, that had to be back in the Gene Stallings years there. Hey, real quick, I know we've talked a lot about the quarterbacks, and we probably will continue to, but I heard this today. Greeny brought this up, and it's something that we touched on the last couple of days. The last 12 years, there have been 37 quarterbacks, I believe, drafted in the first round. Only one of them has won a Super Bowl. That's it. One quarterback in the draft in the last 12 years. Do you know who that was?
One quarterback is Patrick Mahomes.
That's it. Patrick Mahomes is the only first-round pick in the last 12 years to win a Super Bowl. So does that kind of say to you, you know what? I don't need to draft a quarterback. Not that I don't need to, but that, give Hurts a chance before I go drafting another quarterback. Like, it's that the other stat that's out there is from 2000, I think it's 10 to 2016. Not one of the first-round picks at quarterback are even on the roster anymore. I feel like these teams just go chasing these quarterbacks, and it keeps them in disarray until you finally get one, which could take 3-4 chance turns in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, given the nature of the position, the quarterback position, teams are usually going to go after that in the first round, the face of the franchise. But to your point, Mike, I completely agree. Because of, so many teams having that history of whiffing on those quarterbacks, it even more so means that, in my opinion, that the Eagles should look elsewhere with pick number 6. They can ill afford to miss on the 6th overall pick. They have to start getting younger at several areas, which is why you need to either identify a wide receiver, an offensive lineman, a cornerback, building block type of players that you have to trust your scout, because with the quarterback selection, it really is a crapshoot, and you actually know more or less what you have in Jalen Hurts because he's had a chance to actually play in NFL games. You know exactly what he needs to work on. You surround him. You have Brian Johnson there. You have guys that can really tap into his potential, hopefully, this offseason and iron out some of those wrinkles. So I think, they should look elsewhere and instead of rolling the dice there, because that's really what it is. You're rolling the dice on a lot of these guys. Outside of Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, there's not a can't-miss quarterback in the first round.
So this Mel Kiper mock draft today went Trevor Lawrence. Atlanta trades up to take Zach Wilson at number 2, Devonta Smith at 3, Kyle Pitts at 4 to the Jets, Penei Sewell 5 to the Bengals, and then Jamar Chase to the Eagles at number 6. So that one there, if that's the way it went, would make for an interesting night. Kyle Pitts to the Jets at number 4, taking a tight end there. Devonta Smith, the first wide receiver off the board, and a trade to get Zach Wilson at number 2. All I know, Andrew, is that this draft is going to be highly anticipated with 5 possible first-round quarterbacks, all these wide receivers. You talked about the corners. We'll talk more about this draft as we get closer. Andrew DeCecco at A. DeCecco NFL for Football at 4. Andrew, take care, man.
Guys, have a great weekend.
You do the same. Checo, of course, like all guests, appeared via the Boardwalk Honda hotline. And Football at 4 is brought to you by Dr. Lyle M. Back for everything from skincare to cosmetic surgery. Go to IloveLyleBack.com or call 856-MAKEOVER for Dr. Lyle M. Back, proud sponsor of Football at 4. And don't forget, the Inside the Birds podcast dropped this morning at 6 a.m., the very latest Inside the Birds podcast.